Finland is very Russian. That's what I heard from an American MAGA commentator, Charlie Kirk. Watch for yourself.
I do think we shouldn't have NATO expansion. I think that's been a mistake. But
NATO's expansion as far as Ukraine, or also as far as
Ukraine and
Sweden?
Finland, I think, was a mistake. Finland is very Russian in a lot of ways, and you can even acknowledge
yes,
that.
but I mean, Russia
pushed
them into NATO.
I know, but Finland was even neutral in World War II. I mean, it was like Finland is a very edge case. You as a European would respect that.
Of course, it's fine.
It's fine.
Let's not get into Finland.
I don't want to get into that, but I would just ask the question.
I remember thinking there aren't many phrases that could truly anger most Finnish people. Until I heard those words, I even posted about it on X. This kind of thinking is a problem I've seen with many American political commentators. They act like they know how the whole world works, as if the American perspective is the only one that truly matters. Sometimes they even try to bring nuance to global events, but it's nuance that exists only within an American worldview. It can be frustrating. But if you know anything about Eastern Europe, you'd never make such a wild statement. And that's why so many Americans still don't understand how important the war between Russia and Ukraine is to Europe, how critical it is for Ukraine to remain independent and preserve its cultural identity, to avoid Russification, because other countries on this side of the world have faced that very same threat, including Finland. Now, I know I'm picking on this guy based on a small clip, but I'm using it as an example. You've probably heard of Johnny Harris, a big YouTuber, and he's really good at what he does. I love his stuff. His videos are entertaining and informative. But a while ago, he released a video explaining why Russia invaded Ukraine. He tried to, in his words, explain it from the Russian perspective. But in the end, it looked and sounded like straight up Russian propaganda. You know the game. NATO expansion provoked them. The West is the bad guy. Blah, blah, blah. That video triggered an enormous wave of anger and pain from Ukrainians and other European countries alike. In fact, the backlash was so intense, he had to take it down and make an apology video. Because the American Western narrative often strips agency from the countries that aren't part of the West. To them, it's never about nations that simply want to break free from Russia, who are ready to pay for their independence with blood, sweat, and tears. Countries that are tired of being under the thumb of Russia. No, those people, those countries are just pawns manipulated by America, being pulled away from their natural home in the safe bosom of Mother Russia. It's insane and it's frustrating, especially when you hear similar tone-deaf comments coming from even the President of the United States of America. And let's not go down that road, because that would annoy and irritate all of us. Eastern Europe has struggled against domination by Moscow-led empires for centuries. That started with the Russian Empire, ruled by the Tsars, which expanded aggressively across the Baltic and into Finland. That empire collapsed in 1917 after centuries of autocratic rule. In its place rose the Soviet Union, a communist superpower that retained many of the same imperial instincts, only now with the Marxist ideology as justification. Then, in 1991, the Soviet Union fell. What emerged was the Russian Federation, what we now call Russia. But while the flag, slogans, and leadership changed, the behavior remained chillingly consistent. From Tsars to Soviets to oligarchs, the desires to dominate neighbors never truly died. Countries like Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia didn't wait for someone to tell them what to do. They wanted independence. They wanted to shape their own future, to lead themselves, to modernize, to become part of the Western world. Just a quick pause in the video. If you are enjoying this, leave me a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps. Back to the video. They weren't manipulated. They were proactive. That's why they wanted to join NATO, because NATO was and is the largest military alliance in the world. It was their only protection against a Russia that never truly lost its imperial hunger. It's not about the West moving east. It's about the East moving west. That's why calling Finland very Russian is more than absurd. It's an insult. Finland's story is one of resistance, of independence, of protecting its identity. In the 12th century, Finland was colonized by the Kingdom of Sweden. Then in 1809, it was captured by the Russian Empire. That's when Finland became an autonomous region known as the Grand Duchy of Finland. And for a while, things were relatively stable. They were allowed to keep their language, culture, and institutions. This actually captures something essential about Finnish culture even today. They just want to be left alone and for their culture to remain intact. But in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the Russian Empire changed its strategy. They began a policy known as Russification, a slow but deliberate erasure of non-Russian cultures. The Grand Duchy began losing its autonomy. New laws were passed that favored Russian interests. From the empire's perspective, it was time to take full control. That's when Finnish nationalism truly awakened. They had a powerful motto: Swedes, we are not. Russians, we do not want to be. So let us be Finns. And in 1917, with the collapse of the Russian Empire, Finland finally declared independence. But the story didn't end there. In 1939, just before World War II, the Soviet Union demanded land from Finland. The Finns knew if they gave in, more demands would follow. So they refused, and the Soviets invaded. The plan was simple: conquer all of Finland and turn it into a puppet communist state. But it didn't go as planned. This was the Winter War, a true David and Goliath story. Finland lost over 26,000 soldiers, a devastating cost. But the Soviets lost over 126,000. Another 200,000 were wounded and 5,000 captured. The Soviet Union was humiliated. And it's believed that this humiliation led Adolf Hitler to believe he could conquer the Soviets easily, a mistake that cost him dearly, which was a great thing for all of us today. So in a way, I guess Finland helped end the war indirectly. As the years went by, Finland adopted a careful strategy known as Finlandization. The idea was, don't provoke the bear. In exchange for neutrality, Finland avoided invasion. That was the deal. Stay neutral and we won't invade you, Finland. But there were limits on what it could say or do. It was freedom, but conditional. It was necessary, but it definitely caused a lot of resentment in Finland. And through it all, there was a hope, a fragile hope that the Soviet Union would honor its side of the bargain. But time and again, Moscow showed it could not be trusted. After the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 by modern-day Russia, both Finland and Sweden abandoned neutrality and joined NATO. Finland is no longer neutral in any way, shape, or form. They understand the reality of living next to a hostile neighbor. They understand the importance of military deterrence. I would easily say that currently Finland has one of the best militaries on the planet. They understand what's at stake. So when someone says Finland is very Russian, they're not just wrong, they're insulting the memory of those who fought and died to prevent Russification. They're dismissing the centuries-long struggle to preserve an identity, a culture, a nation. So it's absolutely insane, and I've got so much more to talk about when it comes to this subject. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave me a like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, ciao.